You know that little booklet you carry when you travel? It's so much more than just a bunch of paper and ink. Your passport. It's really a key that unlocks the world. But it's also a quiet statement about your home country's reputation and its place on the global stage. So, let's dive right into a paradox that honestly seems to defy logic. What if a country's passport climbed up the global rankings, becoming stronger on paper, at the exact same time its citizens could actually travel to fewer places without a visa? I mean, how is that even possible? Well, that's the puzzle we're going to piece together today. And this isn't just a hypothetical. Let's look at a real-world example that sparked this whole question. In one recent year, the Indian passport was ranked 85th, and it gave you visa-free access to 57 countries. Okay, pretty straightforward. But the very next year, its rank jumped a full 10 spots to 75th. Sounds great, right? But here's the twist. The number of countries you could get into actually dropped to 56. A better rank, but less travel freedom. We're calling this the Indian passport puzzle. All right, so to solve a puzzle like this, we have to start with the basics. What actually determines how powerful a passport is in the first place? As you might guess, it often comes down to one really big factor: a country's money. Just take a look at this chart. It maps out countries based on their GDP per capita against how many places their passports can get them into visa-free. And you can see this clear diagonal line forming. The trend is just unmistakable. As a nation gets wealthier, the travel freedom for its citizens tends to shoot up right along with it. See, wealthier countries are usually seen as more stable. They have stronger diplomatic relationships, and their citizens are seen as less likely to overstay a visa. It basically makes them low-risk visitors in the eyes of other nations. And this table really shows you the extremes of that trend. Up at the top, you've got these economic powerhouses like Singapore, Ireland, and Luxembourg. They have incredibly high GDPs, and their citizens can just waltz into nearly 200 different destinations. But then you look at the other end. Countries like Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq, which are facing huge economic and political challenges. Their travel freedom is, as you can see, extremely limited. So the main takeaway seems obvious. Wealth and passport power usually go hand in hand. But not always. And this is where the story gets really, really interesting. That trend line we saw, it's a great rule of thumb, but global mobility isn't just about how rich a country is. To really get the full picture, we have to look at the outliers. The countries that completely break that pattern, because they show us what truly makes a passport powerful. So, if we go back to that chart, you can see a whole bunch of dots that are way off that main trend line. Those are our outliers, and they pretty much come in two flavors. You've got wealthy nations with surprisingly weak passports, and then you have middle-income countries that are punching way above their economic weight. Let's break those down. First up, let's talk about the rich but restricted. Think about countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Kuwait. These Gulf states have enormous wealth, mostly coming from oil and gas. And yet, their passports give them way less visa-free access than you'd expect for that kind of money. This is often because their economies aren't as diversified, and their diplomatic priorities are just focused differently, which means they don't sign as many of those reciprocal visa-free travel agreements. Now, on the flip side, you have countries that are punching above their weight. Nations like Malaysia, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. They have more modest economies for sure, but their passports are remarkably strong. And this just goes to show you that having broad diplomatic relationships, a balanced foreign policy, and a solid reputation for global cooperation can be just as valuable as pure economic muscle. Okay, so now we get it. It's not just about wealth, it's also about diplomacy, reputation, and how countries stack up against each other. So with all that new context, let's circle back to our original paradox and finally solve the Indian passport puzzle. So that drop from 57 to 56 visa-free destinations, it wasn't just a random number change. It was caused by very specific policy shifts. First, Iran suspended its visa-free deal for Indian passport holders. Then, Bolivia changed its rules. It used to be a simple visa on arrival, but they switched to an e-visa that requires getting approval beforehand, which, in the eyes of the index, no longer counts as visa-free. Now, to be fair, the Gambia did add visa-free access for Indians, which helped a little, but the math is simple. 2 steps back, 1 step forward, for a net loss of 1 destination. So this brings us right back to the million-dollar question. If India actually lost access to a country, how on earth did its global rank jump up by 10 whole spots? It doesn't make sense, right? Well, the secret to the entire puzzle is in how the ranking itself is calculated. It's not an absolute score, it is a relative ranking. As the Economic Times pointed out, India's position got better not because its own passport got stronger, but because other countries' situations changed. In simple terms, India's rank went up because other passports may have lost even more access, causing them to fall. So think of it this way. India didn't necessarily climb up the ladder, it's more like the rungs below it shifted downward, pushing its relative position higher. So let's pull all these threads together. After all of this, what have we actually learned about what makes a passport powerful? Well, it's pretty clear that it's a complex formula. It goes way beyond just a single economic number and really reflects a country's entire relationship with the rest of the world. At the end of the day, a passport's strength really rests on these four pillars. You need economic strength and diversity, you need broad diplomatic ties, you need international trust, and you need stable governments. A powerful passport isn't just a cool perk for trialers, it's a clear signal to the world that a country is seen as a reliable, integrated, and trustworthy member of the global community. And that leaves us with one final thought. In this incredibly connected world we live in, that passport you hold is a reflection of history, economics, and diplomacy all rolled into one. So the next time you open it, maybe take a second to ask yourself, what story is this little book telling about my country's place in the world?